Many retirees worry about outliving their savings or running out of money in retirement. So today we've got Andrew Lowe, who's the Head of Technical Services at Challenger. And Andrew, you're going to help us understand a little bit about how much is enough. Is that right?
I sure am. That's the plan today.
So how can guaranteed income help those in or approaching retirement in the face of the rising cost of living? As a pretty big question to start with, but you know, it's a really tough time at the moment with the rising cost of living. So we're pretty keen to hear your advice in that regard.
Fantastic. It's a massive challenge. I absolutely appreciate the impact of the rising cost of living on many pre and post retirement Australians. And there are certainly some things that can help Australians with the provision of income through the course of their retirement. The first thing I'd highlight is the benefits of planning with this in mind. And retirement planning is a massive undertaking in itself. You know, where appropriate, people might seek professional support with that in mind. There are things that we can do that can really help us understand how long our income might last and how it can help sustain our spending in retirement. Getting a grip on what is essential for spending in retirement, I think, is a really interesting element. So how much it might cost me to provide, keeping the lights on, keeping the heat on through winter, those sorts of things, essential travel, food, all of those sorts of things, really important to understand. And I won't use the B word, the budgeting word here, but understanding how you spend in retirement, I think, is a really important element into retirement. And then working out how you can support that level of spending. You mentioned guaranteed income, and I'm going to put a few things into that particular bucket. Something like eligibility for the age pension for many Australian retirees will underpin some of their spending in retirement, and that can be a significant contributor to that. If your essential spending requirements see you needing more than the age pension that you're eligible for, there are other sources of guaranteed income or certain income in retirement, and that can really help as well in terms of meeting those requirements. Some people will be eligible for a defined benefit income stream, and increasingly superannuation fund and retirement income stream providers, including annuity providers, make available different types of income streams that can give certainty of income over a long period or a lifetime. The role that can play is really important. That sort of stability of income can improve total income that retirees will receive over a lifetime. It'll improve the chances of meeting their income goals in retirement. So I can be more certain about being able to meet my income goals and be more, less fearful about that idea of running out of income in retirement. It can improve the amount of assets that I have available, both while I'm alive and available to leave to beneficiaries in the event of my, hopefully a long time from now, eventual passing. And then I could set up strategies and structures to give me certainty around the things that I need to spend, and then invest the balance of my assets in perhaps less certain outcomes, but with the potential for growth to deliver on those non-essential spends, but things that I really want to do, like to do in retirement, the desirables, the nice to haves through that. So for me, building a portfolio of income streams, including guaranteed income streams, are really important undertaking, and one that I think can deliver a lot of benefits to Australian retirees.
That's fantastic. I think the concept of people being fearful that you just touched on just then, we see it in our community a lot. People, they, particularly at the moment, and particularly with people living longer, people do genuinely worry, that they are going to potentially run out of money. So it's a real genuine fear when you sort of mentioned that word fear.
Yeah,
so
there's two critical elements for me in that. The first one is, how long am I going to live for in retirement? It's an uncertain period of time.
Yeah.
For me, we do lots of research with pre and post retirees, and that's an area that we often find that Australian retirees get wrong. It's a blunt assessment, but we get it wrong. The average 65-year-old male that we've spoken to underestimates his life expectancy by 5.5 years in retirement. So I think understanding how long you might reasonably live for is one component of that, and then planning over a realistic time frame. The second part is some hard maths that's occasionally required, converting a super lump sum into a level of spending that's going to last me for a long time. The maths of that can be tricky, and we might talk about how we could plan for that today as well.
So I think you've touched on it a little bit, but what is the actual concept of safe spend in retirement?
Yeah, so safe spending is an extra piece of information that I think is really important for Australian retirees to have at hand when they're working out what they're going to spend through the course of their retirement. So, the first part of working out what you want to spend is really important. I'd like to have a lifestyle that features these sorts of elements. I want to do this, and this, and I've calculated that it'll cost $X. Really useful starting point. But if I, for example, have very modest retirement savings, I've got a couple of $100,000 worth of retirement savings, and my to-do list, runs to $100,000 worth of spending per annum, I think the maths of that's pretty simple. That's an unsafe level of spending. And so a safe level of spending is where we go away and we do some number crunching around those numbers and say, with your level of retirement savings, this is how much you can spend. And then that's not how much you're limited to. It's not, this is what you can only spend. It's something that you would then put as a frame of reference to your desired level of spending. And so, for example, if you came to me and said, I've got $200,000 worth of retirement savings and I want to spend 100, I'd say that's an unsafe level of spending, Mr. Ms. Client, and we need to revisit how you could reasonably spend your retirement savings, because it could be a spectacular couple of years. I grant you that. But after that, that client's completely dependent on the age pension alone. And if that's insufficient to meet their ongoing expenses, that could be an uncomfortable position for that client in retirement. So it's an extra data piece for clients to have at hand in terms of that. I thought I'd share with you, for example, just one number as to what that might look like for a client. So if I take a client with a big amount of retirement savings. Let's put $1 million onto it. I'm a 67-year-old male-female couple that's accrued $1 million worth of retirement savings for us. What I've worked out is that client couple can, in the first year of their retirement, spend about $73,000 a year. That $73,000 a year in the first year predominantly comes from their retirement savings. There's a little bit of age pension in that. $1 million gets you just into the age pension if you happen to be a homeowner. But effectively, that then allows that client in years subsequent to that to spend that inflated by CPI, so it protects that level of spending in real terms, so adjusts for inflation, and effectively should stand, I've picked a relatively high level of safety attached to that, in 9 out of 10 circumstances will last for as long as those clients live. And so that's the starting point for that particular analysis. If I had a younger client, they'd be able to spend less in the first year. If I had an older client, they'd be able to spend more. If they were single, it'd be different again. But they're the sorts of things that it'd be useful as a starting point for working out the reasonableness of a spending pattern in retirement. I then think that leads you on to other conversations like, how do I change my spending over time? Am I going to spend that same level forever and a day? Does that change over time? We certainly see clients with different spending patterns in retirement, and then let's customize that to how I might want to spend through the course of my retirement.
Fantastic. So Andrew, do you have any final tips or tricks on how people can spend, I guess, confidently to enjoy a lifestyle after retiring without the fear of running out of money?
Yeah. So I think something like a series, an understanding your desired expenditure over time. I think really importantly, prioritization of different, what's important to you. What's important to you might be different to what's important to someone that looks a whole lot like you for a lot of other reasons, but different priorities should, and your priorities should drive what you spend through the course of your retirement. For me, the next idea, and I'll come back to this idea, is this idea of essential spending, really putting aside something that can make sure that you've got what your essential spending requirements are for a long time into retirement. And then increasingly, the availability of things like lifetime income streams from super funds, from other providers, I think can really help as well in terms of addressing that particular concern. I think really importantly, knowledge is important here. It can make the difference between a course of action that effectively gets you through retirement, or one that sees you fail earlier, with at least in a monetary sense. And so understanding the variables and working through your plan, I think, is a really important guide for that sort of objective.
Andrew from Challenger, you mentioned knowledge and how important it is. We thank you for sharing your knowledge today. Thank you very much.
A pleasure, Wendy.